The soft vibration against the polished mahogany table was the only warning I received. Subtle at first, almost easy to ignore. I was standing mid-conversation, explaining the fine difference between Venetian plaster and a standard matte finish to a client whose contract alone was worth more than my husband earned in 3 years. My voice was steady. My posture, perfect professionalism wasn't just a habit for me. It was something I had trained into myself over years. So I didn't look down right away. I kept speaking, kept smiling, kept control. Then the second vibration came longer this time, sharper, more demanding. It broke through the moment like a crack in glass, without interrupting my sentence. I casually slid my phone off the table and onto my lap, my expression never changing. My client didn't notice a thing. But when I glanced down, everything changed. The first notification was from the bank. Withdrawal alert. $68,000. For a brief second, my mind refused to process it. It just sat there, numbers and symbols with no meaning. Then the second notification appeared, a message from Jason. Heading to Dubai with Kayla. Thanks for the startup capital. Don't wait up, haha. Ha. That haha stayed on the screen longer than anything else. 2 small syllables, so light, so careless. And yet they carried enough weight to crush 12 years of marriage into a joke, into something disposable, something laughable. He hadn't just walked away. He had taken the renovation fund I had spent 24 months building, dollar by dollar, project by project. He had taken the capital meant for my second studio and turned it into a luxury escape with his mistress. First-class tickets, hotel suites, champagne funded by my work, and still, I didn't react, I didn't gasp. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't knock anything over. Instead, I lifted my eyes back to my client, offered a calm, controlled smile, and said gently, "Forgive me. I just need a brief moment to handle a small logistics issue." My tone was so steady, it almost surprised me. I excused myself and walked and hurried, composed, to the powder room. I closed the door softly behind me, turned the lock, and stood there in silence for a second before looking up at my reflection. I studied my face carefully. No tears, no shaking hands, no panic. I waited for it to break down. The emotional crash that every movie promises in moments like this. The sobbing, the anger, the collapse. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt something else, a quiet, tonal shift, like the sound of a lock clicking into place. I leaned lightly against the cool porcelain sink and opened my banking app. My heartbeat hadn't sped up. If anything, it felt slower, steadier. This wasn't panic. This was something far more controlled. Something sharper, clarity. The number stared back at me. $68,000. That money was meant to pay contractors starting next week on my new studio location. Jason knew that. He knew exactly what he was taking and exactly what it would do. He didn't just steal from me. He tried to destroy what I was building, but Jason had always been better at spending money than understanding it. One tap brought up the transaction. Details. I stared at it for a second, and then, unexpectedly, almost smiled. A standard transfer, not a wire. A wire transfer would have been instant, gone without a trace, but a standard transfer. That takes time. Time to process. Time to move. Time to stop. He had been in such a rush, so desperate to get to the airport, so excited about his fantasy that he pressed the wrong option. The money wasn't gone, it was floating, suspended between accounts, waiting to land. I immediately dialed the bank's fraud department. When the representative answered, I didn't sound emotional. I didn't sound hurt. I sounded in control. "This is Eleanor Vance," I said evenly. "I'm seeing a transfer of $68,000 initiated from an unrecognized device. I did not authorize this transaction. I need it flagged immediately." The agent responded quickly. "We can place a hold right away, Mrs. Vance. We'll begin an investigation." "Do it," I replied, "and revoke access for the secondary cardholder immediately." Step 1 done. The money wouldn't reach him, but I knew Jason. He wouldn't panic yet because, in his mind, he still had a safety net. The house. We had a home equity line of credit. $200,000 available. Jason always saw that as his backup plan, his personal reserve. He was probably already imagining how he'd use it in Dubai five-star hotels, expensive dinners, effortless living. What he forgot was that I was the one who handled the refinance. I opened the mortgage app. The dashboard loaded instantly. Available credit, $200. Oh. My finger hovered for just a second before I tapped Manage Limit. I didn't close the account that would take paperwork. Approvals. Instead. I adjusted the withdrawal limit. I typed single number. Confirmed. The screen refreshed. Available credit, $0. Just like that. His golden safety net turned into nothing. He was on his way to one of the most expensive cities in the world with no money, no access, and no backup. I set my phone down and turned on the faucet, letting cold water run over my wrists. 10 seconds. Just enough to reset. A trick I learned years ago. I dried my hands. Reapplied my lipstick a shade called Power Red and looked at myself again. The woman in the mirror wasn't broken. She wasn't lost. She wasn't a victim. She was in control. I unlocked the door and walked back into the showroom. Mrs. Sterling looked up from the fabric samples. "Everything all right, dear?" she asked kindly. I smiled, calm and precise. "Everything is perfectly under control," I said. "Now, about the velvet drapes, I believe midnight blue would be the stronger choice. It's far less forgiving." She nodded, pleased, completely unaware that in the 5 minutes I had stepped away, I had quietly dismantled my husband's entire escape plan. And the best part? He wouldn't realize it until he tried to pay for his first drink. People often ask me later how I stayed so calm, how I didn't break down when my husband ended. Everything with a message and drained our account in the same breath. They assume I was in shock. They assume I was numb, but I wasn't. I was simply ahead of him, you see. My marriage didn't end in that bathroom. It ended 182 days earlier. It was a Tuesday in November. I was standing on a stage holding a Crystal Award, accepting one of the biggest honors of my career. The lights were bright, the applause loud. I was searching the crowd for Jason. His seat was empty. 10 minutes earlier, he had texted, "Client emergency. So proud of you." I believed him for a few minutes. Then I opened Instagram and I saw the truth. Not on his page, on hers. Kayla, the receptionist from his gym, posted a short video. 2 margarita glasses clinking together in a dim bar. And in the corner of the frame, his jacket. The one I bought him, the caption read, "Work hard. Play hard." In that moment, I didn't feel heartbreak. I didn't feel anger. I felt something colder, something final. It was like a switch turning off. That was the moment Jason stopped being my husband. He became a liability. And you don't hold on to liabilities. You remove them. That night, I went home in silence. No confrontation. No arguments. I opened my laptop and created a file. I named it Project Exit for 6 months. I built what I called a shadow ledger. Every insult, every lie, every hidden expense, it all became part of a system. When he dismissed my work, I moved money. When he lied about business dinners, I adjusted accounts. When he laughed at me in public, I compensated myself quietly. I wasn't stealing. I was protecting what was mine by the time this morning arrived. Most of my real assets were already out of reach. The $68,000 he took, that wasn't my life savings. That was bait. I knew him well enough to know he wouldn't resist it, and needed him to take it. Because in court, betrayal is emotional, but theft is evidence by taking that money. He didn't just leave me, he exposed himself. He walked straight into the trap I had been building for months. So no, I didn't cry when I read his message. You don't cry when the trap finally snaps. You just wait for the sound that comes after. 7 hours later, my phone rang. His name lit up the screen. I let it ring once, twice, then I answered. I didn't say hello. I just listened. "Eleanor." Pick up the damn phone." His voice snapped tight with panic. Behind him, I could hear the noise of an airport announcements, footsteps, distant voices. "I'm here." "Jason," I said calmly, "the cards aren't working." He shouted, "None of them. I tried everything, the Visa, the Amex, even the credit line, they declined it all. They treated me like a criminal." I leaned back slightly, letting a small silence stretch between us. And then, with the same calm tone I had used all day, I said nothing at all, and just listened as he unraveled, because the real story was only just beginning, and he still had no idea what was coming next. "Eleanor." He literally cut the plastic. "That sounds inconvenient," I said. "Inconvenient. I'm stranded. I have investors meeting me at the Berg in 2 hours. I can't even pay for the cab to get there. Fix it. Call the bank. Tell them it's a mistake." "I can't do that, Jason." "Why the hell not?" "Because it wasn't a mistake." There was a silence on the line. A long, heavy silence where the reality of his situation tried to penetrate the fortress of his ego. "What did you do?" he whispered. "I protected my assets," I said. "You stole $68,000 this morning. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Or did you think I would just let you keep it as a parting gift?" "That's our money," he screamed. "That's marriage money. That was renovation money. I'm going to sue you," he spat. "I'm going to take half of that stupid design shop. I hung up. I blocked his number. 3 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was his mother. Of course, the flying monkeys were being deployed. "Eleanor," she screeched before I could even say hello. "My son is stranded in a foreign country. He says you cut him off. How could you be so cruel? He's frightened. He has no place to sleep." I took a breath. This was the moment where the old Eleanor would have defended herself. I would have explained about the affair, the theft, the lies. I would have begged for her understanding, but I wasn't that woman anymore. I was a gray rock, uninteresting, unmovable, unresponsive. "Am I said? Is that all you have to say?" she demanded. "He is your husband." "Not for long," I said. "You are vindictive. You are cold. I always knew you were too focused on that business to be a good wife. You drove him to this." I said, "He needs money." "Eleanor, send him money right now or I will tell everyone what you've done." "Okay," I said. "Okay, does that mean you're sending it?" "No," I said, "it means I'm hanging up now." Don't you dare click. I didn't just hang up. I powered the phone down completely. I tossed it onto the sofa cushion. The silence that filled the room wasn't empty. It was heavy with power. For years, greater than I had managed their emotions, soothed their egos, fixed their messes. Today, I let them sit in the mess they made. Jason was in Dubai with no money. A girlfriend who was probably realizing her sugar daddy was broke, and a mother who couldn't save him. I walked over to my desk and opened my laptop. I had one more email to send. It was to my lawyer, attached with a file labeled Dissolution of Marriage. Subject line, proceed immediately. Jason came back 48 hours later. He didn't return to the house. He couldn't get in. I had changed the locks and the alarm codes the hour his flight took off. He ended up in his mother's guest room, surrounded by his high school trophies and the distinct smell of failure. But desperation makes people bold. 2 days after he landed, I received a letter from a lawyer he had hired on retainer, probably using the last of his personal credit. The letter was a masterpiece of delusion. It demanded spousal support. It demanded reinstatement to the marital home. And most offensively, it demanded 50% ownership of Aura Interiors. The claim was that his emotional support and financial guidance were instrumental in building my company. I read the letter in my lawyer Julia's office. I didn't get angry. I looked at Julia and she looked at me, and we shared the quiet smile of two women holding a royal flush. "He wants to play hardball," Julia said, smoothing a document on her desk. "So let's play." During the discovery phase, the legal process where both sides have to show their cards, Julia had gone through the bank records with a forensic comb. She found something Jason had buried deep in the paperwork pile. It was a loan application submitted to the bank 3 days before his trip. It was a request to increase our home equity line of credit from $200,000 to $350,000. The application was approved. It had both our signatures at the bottom. There was just one problem. I hadn't signed it. Julia slid the paper across the mahogany desk. "Look at the E in Eleanor," she said. "You loop your E, this one is jagged. It's a trace job." I ran my finger over the ink. Jason had forged my signature on a bank document to secure more debt against my house to fund his affair. In divorce court, adultery is a misdemeanor of the heart. But bank fraud, forgery, that is a felony. That is federal prison time. "We have him," Julia said. "This isn't just leverage, Eleanor. This is a guillotine." But I wasn't done. I wanted the blade to drop on his career, too. In his demand letter, Jason had included a sob story about lost wages. He claimed that my freezing of the assets had caused him to miss a critical investment meeting in Dubai with a Mr. Arthur Henderson, costing him a potential 6F. Figuror commission. He was trying to blame me for his professional failure. I laughed out loud. "What?" she asked. "Arthur Henderson." I said he went to Dubai to pitch Arthur Henderson. "Yes. Why?" "Because Arthur Henderson is the husband of Mrs. Beatrix Henderson. My biggest client, the woman whose living room I just redesigned. The woman I had dinner with the night before Jason left. Jason had flown across the world to pitch a man whose wife was currently raving about my work. He had no idea." "Julia," I said, leaning back in my chair, "I don't just want to countersue. I want to draft a response that explains exactly why Mr. Henderson declined that meeting. And I want to attach the forgery evidence. Jason thought he was fighting for half of my business. He didn't realize he was fighting to stay out of handcuffs. The trap wasn't just snapped shut. I was about to weld it closed. The arbitration room smelled like lemon polish and expensive fear. Jason was already there when I walked in. He was wearing his closer suit, the navy pinstripe one I bought him for our 10th anniversary. It looked a little tight around the middle now. Beside him sat his lawyer, a man who looked like he billed by the sigh. Jason smirked when he saw me. He actually smirked. He tapped his pen on the table, projecting confidence he couldn't possibly afford. "Eleanor," he said, nodding like we were old colleagues. "Ready to settle this so we can all move on." I didn't answer. I sat down next to Julia. I placed my phone on the table, screen down. "We are prepared to offer a 50-50th split of the marital assets," Jason's lawyer began, shuffling papers, including the current valuation of Aura Interiors. "My client is willing to waive spousal support in exchange for a lump sum buyout of the business equity." I watched Jason. He was pining. He really believed he was going to walk out of here with a check for $500,000. Julia cleared her throat. She didn't open her briefcase. She simply slid a single thin black folder across the polished table. "We have a counteroffer," Julia said. Jason's lawyer picked up the folder. He opened it. I saw his eyes scan the first page, then the second. His posture changed instantly. He stiffened. The boredom vanished, replaced by the sharp alert of a man realizing he has stepped on a landmine. "What is this?" Jason asked, reaching for the folder. "That," I said, speaking for the first time, "is a forensic handwriting analysis confirming that the signature on the Helilock expansion application is a forgery. That is a federal crime, Jason. Bank fraud carries a sentence of up to 30 years. Jason's face went pale. The smirk dissolved into something wet and terrified. That's a mistake," he stammered. "I had permission. Implied permission." And underneath that, I continued, "is an email chain." He lifted the second page. It was a printout from Mr. Arthur Henderson, addressed to the VP of Sales at Jason's company, to whom it may concern. "Please be advised that I am rescinding all current and future contracts with your firm. I recently learned that your director, Jason Vance, attempted to fund a business trip to pitch me using stolen marital funds and forged documents. I do not do business with men who lack basic integrity. Consider this formal notice." Jason read the email. His hands started to shake. The paper rattled against the table. A dry, dead sound. "You got me fired," he whispered. "You got me fired." "No, Jason," I said. "You got yourself fired. I just made sure the right people knew why." The room was silent. His lawyer closed the folder and pushed it back toward us. He looked at Jason with pure disgust. "I can't defend this," he muttered. "You didn't tell me about the forgery." "Here is our offer," Julia said, her voice cutting through the air like a guillotine blade. "You signed the quitclaim deed on the house today. You waive all claims to Alar Interiors and any future earnings. You assume 100% of the debt you accrued. In exchange, Eleanor agrees not to hand that folder to the FBI." Jason looked at me. His eyes were red, watery, pleading. The arrogance was gone. He looked small. He looked like the child he had always been. "Eleanor, please," he begged. "I have nothing. If I sign this, I have nothing." "You have your freedom," I said, "which is more than you deserve." He stared at the pen. His hand trembled as he picked it up. He signed the house deed. He signed the waiver. He signed away his claim to my life's work. When he finished, he slumped back in his chair, defeated. I stood up. I smoothed my skirt. I didn't look back at him. I walked to the door, opened it, and turned just slightly. "Good luck in Miami, Jason," I said, "or wherever you end up." I walked out into the hallway, and for the first time in 6 months, I took a full, deep breath. The air tasted like victory. 6 months have passed since I walked out of that boardroom. I'm standing in my living room. It looks different now. The first thing I did after the deed was recorded in my name was hire a painter. We covered up the corporate beige walls Jason insisted on. He said it improved resale value and painted them a deep, rich emerald green. I replaced the leather recliner he loved with a velvet chase lounge. The house doesn't feel empty. It feels exhaled. It feels like it's finally holding its breath. I don't hear from Jason anymore. Through the grapevine, mostly his mother's desperate Facebook posts. I know where he is. He's living in his childhood bedroom in her basement. He lost the condo, the car, and the status he warped. He's working an entry-level sales job, cold calling people to sell insurance. And Kayla, she didn't stick around for the basement era. She left him 3 weeks after the Dubai disaster. Apparently, she's dating a spin instructor now, someone her own age, someone with a credit card that actually works. I opened my laptop this morning to pay the contractors. I clicked on the trust account, the one I had hidden, the one that saved me for months. The label on that account read tax. It was a shield, a weapon, a scorecard of every insult I had endured. But looking at it today, the name felt wrong. I didn't need a shield anymore. I didn't need to define my wealth by his failures. I clicked Edit Name. I backspaced over tax. I typed the expansion fund. I hit Enter. That money, the money he tried to steal, the money I protected, it's now the down payment on the lease for ARA Interior's second location. It's a beautiful industrial space downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows. I'm signing the lease tomorrow. I used to think my role in life was to be the fixer, to smooth over rough edges, to balance the books, to keep the structure standing while someone else took a sledgehammer to the foundation. I thought love was about enduring the demolition. I was wrong. I picked up my drafting pencil and looked at the blueprints for the new studio spread out on my desk. Clean lines, strong foundations, no hidden cracks. Jason thought he could destroy me with a text message. He thought he could bulldoze my life and build a playground for himself on the rubble. But he forgot who he was married to. He was just a tenant. I was the architect. And this time, I'm building something that no one can ever take away from me. If you've ever had to be the smart one while someone else played the victim, leave a muscle in the comments. And if you want the exact checklist I used to separate my finances before he even knew I was leaving, check the link in my bio.